Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, a homeowner association tried to steal our lake property. They claimed they owned our lake and boats and called the police on us. We made them pay a big price for their shenanigans. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. So I have a fear that the HOA leaders here in South Africa are taking a few pointers from the ones in America. At least where I live, HOAs were never that big of a thing, but suddenly they started popping up left and right for no real reason. One cropped up in my neighborhood and only me and a few other neighbors realized that joining it would be a horrible idea and refused to do so. We did not want anything to do with them, but in the backs of our minds worried about something possibly happening. I was right, of course, or there would not be a story, but I didn't know it would have escalated to the point that it did. So my neighborhood has a lake, and I don't mean a tiny pond because the lake is a pretty decent size. Most of the houses that are lucky enough to be on the lake have private docks and boats. I love my land because having that perk and spending most of my free time taking the boat out on the lake and enjoying my life. Like I said before though, only a few of us on the lake refused to become part of the HOA and we became a little bit of a thorn in their side. I found this information out later, but their plan was to build an HOA-exclusive boat club on the lake. Other people owning lake property and having access though was an issue for them and they couldn't control us or our boat usage. They wanted it to be a fancy, snobby type of club and the roar of my boat engine apparently went against that. I did not give a damn what they wanted though because it was my dock, my boat and my right to use the lake. And just to clear up any confusion, it was not exactly a public lake, but anybody that had lake property had the right to use it. As long as I owned the property, I did not need permission from anybody, and that went for my neighbors as well. The people that joined the HOA might have signed away that right, but I don't really care about them. None of us were going to budge on the matter, no matter how many times the HOA came banging on our doors. That was when letters arrived in the mail from the HOA lawyer claiming that the HOA owed the lake. They were banning our boats and we had a week to get rid of them ourselves or somebody was gonna come and do it for us. We were all angry and not a single one of us was gonna give into this scare tactic that we knew could not be legal. We did not have to follow the HOA rules and they did not own the lake like they were claiming. So we kept our boats right where they were and a week later some people came in order to try and forcibly take them away. We were prepared though and made sure we were all on our boats so they could not do anything. They made some calls and the HOA leaders came down and saw what the whole issue was about. They went dock to dock yelling at us to get off our boats because they were gonna confiscate them. However, we didn't and one of them actually called the police on us who came onto what I assume was an odd sight. I would not get off my boat to talk to the police until I was assured nothing was being moved or confiscated until they got to the bottom of everything. The police said, "They say the boat goes against the HOA contract that you signed." Me, I never signed an HOA contract. I'm not even part of the HOA. Police, "And this is your property?" Me, "Yes, I own the land, the dock and my boat. Is it still illegal for me to have my boat parked on my own dock?" Police, "No sir, we rent the boat and found it is in your name and all up to code. If you are not part of the HOA, they cannot take the boat away." The police told them they could not legally take the boats and they threw a fit until they were thrown out of the property. I was worried they would come back, so me and my neighbors sued them for what they had done. Attempting to take our boats was theft and because of their idiot move calling the police, we had actual records of what happened. Mixed with the harassment to get us to join the HOA and false claims that they owned the lake. The good news was that with all of this, even they knew our boats going missing would look really bad on their part. Before I get into what the ruling was for, all of that I need to back it up a moment because of something else. Remember the HOA lawyer letters we got in the mail? Well, it turns out that the real lawyer refused to send those letters because he could probably see how illegal the actions the HOA were trying to take were. My guess is he was trying to stay out of it, but still we got letters and they did not have the name of that lawyer either. It turns out that the brother of one of the HOA leaders wrote those letters to us. He used pretty professional language and even used a letterhead calling himself a lawyer when in fact he was not a lawyer of any kind. He was now under investigation for pretending to be a lawyer, which is very illegal in almost every country that I know of. The HOA leader, of course, for being in the know of it all, was also gonna get in a ton of trouble for that. Now onto the part that has to do with me personally. The HOA leaders in court were told very bluntly that they did not own the lake and their plans for an HOA exclusive club would actually be going against a few local laws, so it would never happen anyway. They did harass us and trespass on our land, as well as lie to the police and hire a company to confiscate our boats. The company, by the way, was not in trouble since they were grossly misinformed of why they were taking the boats away. They had to pay me and the other non-HOA neighbors involving a huge fine and promised to stay away from us. They were not even allowed to send anything in the mail asking us to join the HOA, or they could end up right back in court. They did not have to go to jail or anything dramatic, but I am glad that the snobs got put in their place. The HOA also did not get disbanded as much as I would have enjoyed seeing that, but instead they continued with their business. However, I did hear that some HOA members were angry because they sold their boats because they were promised a lake club that of course was now never gonna exist. Since I'm not involved, I don't actually know what came of that, but I do still know the same people continue to be in charge. I also don't know the fate of the HOA leader's brother, but I would guess a hefty fine or some jail time for impersonating a lawyer. And yeah, ripe stars, just imagine that you live in a nice neighborhood, a nice peaceful neighborhood, and then at some point some kind of HOA starts popping up with a bunch of entitled people who now try to encroach and steal your property. Absolutely outrageous if you ask me. Props to OP and his neighbors for solving the situation like this. But anyway, now let's continue. The next one is titled The Wine Karen. Many years ago, I owned a small cheese and charcuterie shop in New England. The kind where you taste everything to make your choices and everything is cut to order. Most customers were great, some just wanted to graze and I would limit them, but there was one woman that I will never forget. Keep in mind that as the owner, I was there every single day, and while I had weekend help, I was still there every minute the shop was open and lots that it wasn't. Karen came in. She is having a party/event/fundraiser and wants to get some ideas for things to serve. Not an uncommon request at all. So I unwrapped cheeses to give her a taste, explaining how to create variety, etc. She would taste a few things, we would chat, and then she would come back when the party approached and we would put together an order then. I wrote down what she liked and didn't so she would know what to ask for. This all took about 30 minutes of my undivided attention and made a real mess in unwrapped cheese wheels, salumi, opened jars of confits and chutneys, the whole shebang, but wrapped up, cleaned up and carried on. However, then she did this again about 6 months later. I remembered her but did not really think much of it at the time. Maybe the first event fell through or we are nearing the time of event, whatever. But then she did it again and the shop was pretty busy and myself and my assistant were trying to help other paying customers and she is taking up a lot of time trying to make her selections. But still, no purchase, no order filled out. Visit number 4, here she comes, it's a weekday, I'm alone in the shop. She starts on the same story. She works for an arts non-profit that throws fundraisers, etc., having an event next month. Can I try this one? What about this one? Maybe something else, what do you recommend? After pulling out the third wheel, I set it down on the cut counter, turned to her and asked what she was doing. You have come in here at least 4 times sampling. I have unwrapped multiple wheels of cheese, dirtied dozens of knives, I never used a knife on more than one product, cut meat samples for her on the slicer, etc., and you have never once spent a penny in here. Oh yes, I have. I was here and I bought a whole platter from your girl when you were not here. That's just not possible. I'm always here and I'm just not gonna do this anymore. She then informs me that she has a friend that works for a wholesale distributor and she comes to me to sample and get knowledge and then buys from him because it is cheaper. I am done with you. You have essentially stolen my service, my goodwill and my product. I have cut and cleaned for you for the last time. Get out and never come back. She went to the wine shop next door to complain about how rude I was to her. I did classes and events with that shop all the time and we were good friends. They threw her out too and never saw her again. I heard through the grapevine that threats of bad word of mouth are her currency. Pre-Yelp days. Edit, the wine shop tossed her because she did something similar to them. Came for tastings, took up lots of time with the staff deciding on what she wanted but never buying. That shop and I were fairly symbiotic. The next one is titled Malicious Compliance Done Right. My dad passed away when I was 10 years old and this story takes place about a year or 2 afterwards. I honestly don't remember exactly how long it had been since a lot had been going on to blur those years together, but I do remember my mom was still very distraught about his death. I think this was one of the first times I actually saw her leave the house since his passing. Also, I'm naturally very tiny, so while I was probably like 12, I definitely looked at least half that on this fateful day I had to go to the doctor's office. I think I had pink eye, but again, I don't really remember. My mom sat me down in the little receptionist office and grabs the paperwork to fill out. My mom's always used humor to deflect her pain, so it was not strange to hear her mumble, second guardian, parent address, I don't know how Heaven's addressing system works, gets it's gonna be left blank. What was strange was when she returned to the receptionist counter. I was bored out of my mind and it was a tiny waiting room, so all I could do was watch the scene unfold. My mom turns to come sit with me again, but is stopped. Excuse me, ma'am? My mom turns back around to face the receptionist. Yes? You didn't finish your paperwork. My mom, ready to do her job and ensure her daughter had medical care, ASAP grabs the paperwork off the counter. She flips through it. No, looks like I got it all. Ma'am, we need a second parent listed. He's no longer in the picture. I'm sorry, but I still need an address. My mom lowers her voice almost too quiet to hear. I mean, he passed recently. I don't have an address. Ma'am, I cannot file the paperwork without one. Her voice is no longer lowered. He is dead. I cannot give you one. Then I cannot file the paperwork. So you're telling me I need my deceased husband's current address to get my daughter looked at? Yes, ma'am. I cannot file the paperwork until it's been completed. My mom is not normally one to make a scene, especially not somewhere like a doctor's office. The keyword here is normally. I watch my mom open her mouth, close it, take in a deep breath and nod it. My mom then spoke loudly. I almost think she embellished the heartbreak in her voice, making sure everyone and anyone could hear. Well, I hope a plot number works for my husband's address, because that's all I can give you. The women immediately start to panic. There is no way her boss did not just hear that, and I could already see people standing up, I assume to defend my mom's honor. She started trying to take the paper from my mom's hands. No, don't worry, I don't need that one. This is good enough. She glared at the woman. No, you said you cannot file that without an address, so I'm giving you one. My mom is also super stubborn. When she gets frustrated, she held onto those papers like they were my dad's final words. Tears were streaming down her face, though I'm still not sure if it was from anger, grief, or an equal mix of both as she scribbled out his plot number. She did not move from the desk, but it did not matter. Everyone was looking at her in stunned silence. My mom had to grab her phone to get the proper number, which involved returning to our seats where her purse was. Then everyone turned to glare at the receptionist when they saw my poor mom had a child. When she did return with her phone, a different woman was standing up front. She then politely told my mom the plot number wasn't necessary, apologized for the other person and told her she could happily return to her seat if she likes. Did I already mention my mother is stubborn when she is pissed? The tears were still coming, but my mom had a blank expression. You cannot file my paperwork without a second parent's address. I will provide you with one. And after a second of navigating her phone, confirming what she wrote down was correct and returned to our seats. The other receptionist did not return while we were there. I also remember my mom being pleasantly surprised when she went over the bill for that. She got a hefty discount, like 60% off. The next one is titled Casino Beggar. Some background: I'm a pit boss at a large resort-style casino. We do high volume and large action. Giving food comps to one of our 8 different restaurants is a very common occurrence. Comps are doled out through our player loyalty system via a player card. The more often / more money you play, the faster and greater amount of comps you accrue. Now, not all restaurants are created equal. We got a 5-star steakhouse, mid-tier places like the Noodle Bar, and on the low end fast food franchises we lease space to. I can write comps for any of these, and sometimes people will take their $40, for example, comp and apply it towards a nice meal at the steakhouse or hit up the Noodle Bar and pay nothing. Either way, when the comp is issued from my computer, I must denote the exact restaurants they are going to for bookkeeping purposes. That comp is then only valid at that particular place and only for 24 hours once printed. So, on to the story. On an averagely busy Sunday night, I am watching our main pit with the assistance of my pit supervisor. He and I are both very seasoned at this job and know most players by name and or on sight. Enter the Karen. I notice our wild Karen approaching from across the bank of slots. I notice her because she is walking quickly, as if with purpose. Most everyone that comes through here walks slowly to evaluate all their gaming choices, so when someone is walking like that, it stands out. I move towards the end of the pit once she makes eye contact with me because I figure she had a complaint that way she was making a beeline for the main pit and looking at me very intensely once she noticed me. Our conversation went like this. Karen, are you the boss here? Me, I'm the manager on duty, what can I do for you? Karen, I want some food comms. I heard you're the one that gives them out. Me groans internally. Sure, no problem. Can I have your loyalty card? Karen, I don't have a loyalty card. Me, okay, where you've been playing today. Side note, sometimes people don't want our card. We'll still monitor their play so they can still receive comms since they are good players. Karen, I have not played here at all. Casinos are a scam. Me, well ma'am, if you don't have a card and you're not gonna play, there's not really a lot I can do for you in the way of comms. Karen, that's BS. My neighbor, his name, says he gets free comms to the steakhouse all the time. I want some of his then. I don't really know what to say as this kind of caught me off guard. I've been in the casino business a long time and I've heard all sorts of weird-ass requests, but asking for another player's comp? That was a new one. I actually knew the guy she was talking about and he was a fairly big player and a regular. Me, ma'am, I cannot give away another player's comp. If you would like to sign up for a loyalty card, it comes with a $10 voucher for the noodle bar as well as some free slot plays. Karen, that's BS. She is now yelling and players and staff are beginning to notice. I want to come to the steakhouse and I want enough for 2 visits for you being mean and saying I don't spend enough money here. Me, ma'am, you have not ever spent any money here at all. At this point, surveillance has noticed her getting more irate. Security is now approaching her and I can see them over her shoulder, but she cannot. Karen, I want what's coming to me. You just let everyone eat for free. And I'm just a poor single woman trying to survive. I signal to the security guard that she needs to go. He says to her, ma'am, why don't we talk off the floor? Karen, I cannot believe you're going to deny me a meal. This place is a scam. He assaulted me. Security guard, ma'am, I seriously don't think that happened. The security guard starts to gently move her off the floor and she loses her mind like a crap collector with amnesia. Karen, help me, they are assaulting me. I just want to leave. Security guard, we just want you to leave too, ma'am. They took her outside and apparently kept ranting the whole time. I had to write up an incident report for my casinos and my personal protection. But damn, that all happened so quick and it escalated so fast. The rest of the night was fine. The dealers and the other pit boss kept saying, damn man, did not know you liked them older and crazy. Just general good-natured ribbing. Hope I never see her again, but I'm sure I will meet another Karen someday who will try to inherit the Queen Bonehead Award. HOA and the Meadow. I was slightly familiar with HOAs, but honestly, I thought they existed in uppity townhome communities where every single house looked the same. It was just my ignorance. When I bought this house with my family a couple of years ago, I was surprised to learn that that neighborhood had an HOA. The neighborhood itself was very spacious, and although we were not necessarily in a rural area, we were in the countryside. Our property alone was about 5 acres. This was much different to the city life we experienced before, but the house was beautiful, and as soon as we laid our eyes upon it, my wife and daughter were already talking about what they could do with so much yard and field space. I decided to not let the fact that it was part of an HOA discourage us, and we bought the house. Red flag number 1, guys. Anyway, our backyard was more like a giant field because of how big it was. The space around the house really was beautiful, much like the neighborhood we resided in. We were lucky enough to be surrounded by bright green fields, big trees, and small rolling hills. It was great to sit out on the porch and really just observe the greatness that Mother Nature had to offer. However, it would be a lie to say that some of our yard did not look unkept. The previous owners did not seem to maintain anything within the yard, so we decided right away that we should. We wanted to let Mother Nature grow whatever she wanted. On top of that, the previous owner also had cows that would graze the field, so we were excited to see what it would look like once we let it flourish. This seemed like a great thing to us, and I think many would agree. I mean, what's better than letting Mother Nature take back what is hers, right? Well, who would have known that the next 4 years, yes, 4 years, we would be battling with the HOA about the yard that had turned into a little meadow. I would like to clarify that while we did let the grass and other plants grow in the field, we also kept it maintained. This is important because the HOA made it seem like our yard was messy or not maintained. The first time we got a complaint was after it was discovered that we had 2 rescued chickens in our backyard. They were not actually our pets, but we had found them and we were holding them for about a week until one of our friends who works in the animal rescue business could come by and pick them up. They were in a little fenced area and one day our neighbor saw them and immediately complained to the HOA. We were not allowed to have any pets unless it was a dog or cat per the HOA. I will admit that I was in the wrong for having the chickens in my backyard because I knew I was not allowed to have them. However, I also want to highlight that these chickens were not pets to us, nor did we plan to keep them in our backyard. Well, this sparked an entire debate about the grass in our yard and the little meadow that had grown. Because, according to the HOA, no one was able to notice the chickens because of how overgrown our meadow was. The HOA issued us letter after letter saying that our meadow needed to be mowed or we would be fined for every day that it wasn't. In one of their letters, the HOA stated that the existence of a meadow instead of a trimmed green lawn with grasses and bushes that rise from 2 to 5 feet tall is not a standard that the community wants, nor does it conform to the standards of the HOA. I thought this was BS, because the field behind our house was clearly not a lawn and nor had it ever been. This was like eating an apple and getting upset because it does not taste like an orange. Besides that, why should I really care what the community wants or what my neighbor wants? As long as I'm not harming anyone, it should not matter what I'm doing with my property. I had kindly sent them back a letter with the help of a lawyer. In my letter I stated that it was unfair to compare our yard to a lawn. While many residents of the neighborhood had decided to transform their space into fenced-in lawn areas, we were one of the few that didn't. Besides this, most of the meadow was only visible from the roads and adjacent lots in the spring months. We always maintained it afterwards, but the issue was that it was too tall for HOA standards. And also that it was not a picket fence lawn like many of the other neighbors. We did not fit in with the neighborhood, is what I was hearing from the HOA. Well, this started another string of letters and complaints. The HOA was trying to compromise with us. The first time they said that they would let us keep it if we mowed it every 4 weeks. This did not make any sense to us because a month is no time for anything to really grow back. And that really was the whole point of us embracing the meadow and field behind us. We wanted the grass, plants and biodiversity to flourish. It was Mother Nature's right after all. After we promptly refused, the HOA sent another letter stating that we could keep it if we mowed it 3 times a year. Again, this is not what we wanted, it completely defeated the purpose of letting the field grow. So we refused once again. The HOA sent us a letter once again. In this letter they said they would not approve any future sales of the property and house if we did not cut down the meadow. This was so weird to me because never once did we mention selling the house. And second, even if we did, what if the new buyer also wanted to let the meadow flourish? The whole thing made no sense to me and I was tired of trying to understand it. After the last letter, I decided to get lawyers involved. At this point, it felt like my family and I were being harassed by the HOA. I understand that they did not like our meadow, but everything else about our property, house and even driveway fit the HOA standards. I was tired of dealing with the HOA over something that didn't matter and for something that did not devalue my home. I don't know, but somehow with the help of a great lawyer that was recommended to us through a friend, we were able to gather the letters and evidence and went to trial. Of course, this did end up being a bit costly, and with all of the back and forth with the HOA for the last couple of years, altogether we ended up spending about $80,000 throughout the years on this issue alone. However, just 2 days before the trial was set to start, the HOA revoked their order for us to mow down our meadow and said that we could keep it. What a waste of time! According to the HOA's decision to let us keep our meadow, they stated that they intended to review its covenants to clarify property maintenance requirements based on community needs and resident input. Sounds like BS, right? Right, they still had to go to court though, so I was happy about that. In the end, the court ordered the HOA to pay us back $80,000 in order to cover the costs of the whole ordeal, and also to cover the costs of the legal fees while dealing with this. They had cost us so much money only to rebuke their decision in the end to attempt to save themselves. I guess that did not work out too well. And yeah, Ripe stars, I would say in this situation the old phrase, play stupid game, win stupid prizes, definitely applies.